Welcome. Who's having a great Dreamforce? Woo! Hey, I didn't hear that. Who's having a great Dreamforce? Right. Who's seen the killer robot arm out there? You seen that? The yellow arm? Isn't that something? Powered by Salesforce and some of the technology we're talking about today. So, as you can no doubt see, this is implementing single sign-on in mobile applications with Salesforce Identity. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Chuck Mortimer. Chuck has been working in identity for about 10, 12 years now, back since Sun, more than that, 15. Since working at Sun Microsystems, he's worked at a range of vendors, joined Salesforce close to 5 years ago now, and is now Vice President of Product Management for Identity. So Chuck owns login.salesforce.com. Anytime you can't log in, he's the guy to blame.
Yes, I have cards here if you need your password resets. I can help you with that. And Pat, my co-presenter today. Pat and I have a long history together that actually goes back to Sun Microsystems as well. Pat's been in the identity world for,
about the same.
A long time, about the same amount of time. If you're familiar with things like OpenSSO, Pat was the community evangelist for them for a long time, and then joined us at Salesforce 4.5 years ago, maybe?
Four. Just over four.
Just over 4. You're getting close to your shortboard. So,
yeah,
getting there.
Looking forward to it.
And is a developer evangelist for you now. So these guys are the ones that make the developer zone awesome, the IoT zone awesome. So Moscone West is developer evangelist central, and Pat's had a big part in that.
All right.
So, and Pat gets to do the best part of the day.
Yay! Okay, so our safe harbor slide basically says, do not buy any of our products or services based on anything that we say here today. Okay, we may make forward-looking statements, talk about unreleased functionality. You should only ever buy based on what's currently available, and you should only invest based on our publicly disclosed information on our website. So the safe harbor out of the way.
Be safe.
Be safe. Safely harbor.
So first of all, we wanted to set a little context because everybody likes to hear product managers talk to slides. What we're going to try and accomplish today, and we're going to try and do it really quick, is talk about and actually show you how you can get past some of the challenges that exist with enterprise apps. So building mobile apps to begin with is challenging, right? You're in an environment that's you got a lot of different devices, different code than you might be used to, certainly things like network and device and interface challenges, et cetera. When you layer on top of that the concept of enterprise security teams and enterprise policy, things get really difficult. How do we take the concept of a common corporate identity and a single sign-on system you might have deployed for your web applications and employ that in a mobile context? How do you make sure that the information and assets that you are deploying down to mobile devices, right? If you're a security professional and trying to trade off between data at rest and data in motion, like what is this? It's kind of both. So how does the nature of what you're trying to protect in those assets and how people are using them and the devices that they're using on and the fact that that device isn't chained underneath a desk and you may not even own that device, change what you need to do with mobile applications. And then how do you actually make sure that you're shutting off people and getting rid of access to that mobile application, getting rid of that asset from their device as they leave the organization. Those are all challenges of building that mobile app. Okay? And then once you've built that mobile app, you also have this last mile problem. Okay? If you're developing an internal IT application, this isn't something that you necessarily want to distribute through iTunes or Google Play. How do we get over the challenge of getting an application in a binary down to your users' devices, whatever device they might be using, if that's not something that you're going to deliver in a traditional consumer pattern? So what we're going to hopefully show you is that Salesforce Identity and the identity services built directly into Salesforce in combination with our open source mobile SDK makes this really, really easy. And we're not going to show you a bunch of slides about it, although we do have slides that when they publish the decks for this, you can kind of look back and reference. What we're going to just do is do it live on stage here and hopefully not have to sacrifice any chickens or pray to any demo gods. But we're going to do this live. So we're going to build an app. We are going to integrate it with a SAML-based corporate single sign-on system. We are going to then authorize particular users to use that app, maybe take a look at how we can enforce additional policy on that app, and then list it and distribute it down to a different device. And we're going to try and get this done in 30 minutes or less, which means we better start building.
Okay. All right. Well, tell people about what we're going to do first as I log in.
So while Pat is logging in here, and I'm giving everyone a seizure with the screens flopping around, we are going to first get logged in as our administrator. And if our first challenge is we're going to build a mobile application and we want single sign-on to work, well, we want to set up single sign-on to begin with. We've kind of done a bit of that work, but we're going to give you an overview quickly of some key things you have to use in order to get mobility working with single sign-on. So this, hopefully you've all seen Salesforce setup before. Pat's using Quick Find, and he's going to single sign-on settings. Okay? In this case, Pat, why don't you drill into single sign-on settings quick? Just click on Identity Connect there. And what's happened here is we've basically exchanged metadata with what's known as an identity provider or a corporate IDP. So the identity provider has provided us a few key unique things. A string that identifies itself, some URLs so we know where that's running, because what's going to happen at runtime here is we're actually going to redirect the user, their browser or their mobile application over to this identity provider such that we can externalize how a user authenticates from Salesforce. And they've also provided a certificate. What makes this possible, at least in SAML, which is one of the single sign-on options into Salesforce, is that we can process a digital signature that's been applied to the message. In essence, we're going to redirect the user over to a corporate single sign-on system. They're going to log in with their username and password. Maybe that's their Active Directory username and password, or whatever you consider your corporate credential to be, and then come back with a signed message. Right? This exchange of metadata has already happened, so we've kind of set up single sign-on. We, of course, need to go back from this. We didn't want to bore you with setting up single sign-on today, and enable single sign-on.
Okay, this is pretty tricky, isn't it? Because I have to click this and then hit save.
Nice job.
Make sure you do those in the right order. So we've enabled SAML. So let's go see what a user would see. So right now, okay, we've enabled SAML, but they've still got the regular username password screen. Well, let's fix that. What we've got to do is go to my domain. So you'll notice in the URL here, it says mobiledemo.dev.my.salesforce.com instead of NA6 or AP1. So this is my domain when you set up a custom domain to refer to your Salesforce organization.
Now, what this allows us to do is discover the org that you're trying to use before the user is authenticated. This is solving an identity provider discovery problem. So when Pat enables this, he's going to click his particular single sign-on provider. We're going to look as the user shows up with that URL and they're unauthenticated into the metadata for this org and determine, hey, the behavior is different for this org. So as you can see, checking that box, what happened, Pat?
So I checked that box, I hit save, just refreshed over here, and we get that Identity Connect button, because if you notice, we have both Identity Connect and the login page enabled. Well, we want to switch over completely to Identity Connect. So I'm going to just turn off the login page, hit save, go back, and refresh. And what you'll see is it looks very different. And this is actually not the Salesforce login page. You can see in the URL, if you can see at the back, let me just do a little zoomy there. Oh, you don't have it.
I don't think I have Zoom turned on.
Oh, you don't have it turned on. So it's basically SSO.salesforceidentity.info. This is nowhere within the Salesforce environment. It's actually our corporate identity provider, which is running Identity Connect.
Yeah, and this could be anything. This could be ADFS, this could be Ping Federate, this could be Identity Connect, which is our own single sign-on option. It could be Google or LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. All of these will work exactly the same way. But you'll notice when he hits that URL, because you've configured it to go talk to your IDP, we now have single sign-on working, and it will seamlessly handle deep links and bookmarks. So we got single sign-on set up. Since we're trying to build an app, let's go build an app.
All right. Okay. So, oh, wow, I can see now. Hands up in the audience if you've used our mobile SDK. A few. Okay. So the great thing about the mobile SDK is it allows us to build apps that integrate with Salesforce really easily. And I'll show you how easily. So I say force iOS create. Okay, you get a choice of various application types. I'm going to build a native app, which means that it's going to be written in Objective-C and, whoa, that's interesting. It's going to be written in Objective-C rather than HTML and JavaScript. So let's build an awesome app.
Yeah.
Okay, it can go in the current directory. Com dot.
Here, no.
It can go in the current directory.
This will matter, though. So.
Oh, this matters?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you want to be?
I want you to use com.salesforce.identity.
Oh, okay. That's rather dull. And harder to type. Are you sure? Com.salesforce identity?
Yeah.
Okay. My organization name is obviously Awesome Inc. And my connected app ID. Now, this is the point at which we have to think about the identity of the application itself as opposed to the end user. Because when users use this application, it's going to go through a flow with Salesforce, and it needs to have an identifier. So back in Salesforce, this thing is in apps. So I go down here. And we created this already. It takes a couple of minutes to set up. So we thought it'd be good to have it pre-configured. So this is essentially the identity we've registered for our application, for our connected app.
What this gives us is context of the application that we're interacting with. So as that application starts up and it sends the user to the Salesforce platform, and the user says, I'd like to authorize in order to use this app, it's not just the user. We also understand, hey, it's this awesome app. And this awesome app identifies itself with this ID, and here's its secret, and here's where we do callbacks for this app, and these are the permissions it would like from the API. So we now have this additional context or additional signal in the process, so we know it's not just a user, but it's a user trying to use the awesome app. So, connected apps in general are how we describe off-platform apps to Salesforce. Single sign-on apps, Canvas apps, or in this case, a OAuth-based application.
All right. So what this actually has created, as I mentioned, it's Objective-C. We don't have to kind of look into this too much. It's not an Objective-C class. But if I look down here, this is the sample app that you get for free when you build a mobile SDK app. And it's super useful. It selects the first 10 users and displays them. So let's see if it's going to work. Okay, everybody cross
I
your
always
fingers.
like to, when we run mobile SDK apps, just hit play. It's often a good sign. So.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just checking we were building for the simulator and
good
not
call.
the phone. And, well, it's all zoomed out.
So pretty straightforward. You now have a working mobile app that has connected up to Salesforce and is going through what's known as an OAuth flow. It's basically asking to get authorization for this user. So it needs to first authenticate the user and then determine whether or not the user is auzed to use this application. Let's actually stop, because I think what we really were trying to accomplish was single sign-on.
I was automatically logging in there, and I noticed that this is a standard Salesforce login page. We want our funky corporate login page, don't we?
So if you remember the My Domain, that was the signal we had in this case that this user is using a single sign-on system. So what we're going to do here is just drill into the mobile SDK. Instead of typing this into the browser, what we're going to do is instruct the mobile SDK to use our custom domain. So he's going to copy that, and if you look at where he is, he's in his plist, which in Xcode is a core descriptor for how you use this application, and he's just changing the OAuth login host. Now, one thing you want to do is reset your content and settings on the simulator, because it gets kind of cached in your app. But now that we've destroyed our original build of this app and we go rebuild and hit play,
let's allow it.
Xcode.
That sounds good in demo. Allow things to happen.
And switch back to the simulator. Notice we get remarkably different behavior. Now we're looking at that that corporate IDP, if you will. Right? We have single sign-on integrated here, and we can drag that off so you guys don't get our super secret password. Like we said, be safe. And now that Pat has input that, we can log into this app. And,
What did we forget, Chuck?
Well, remember that we were trying to integrate single sign-on. One of the things that we also wanted to do was start putting in policies here. Who's allowed to authorize this application? So this brings up an important concept within the OAuth services and the connected app services for Salesforce, which is we have different modes of operation. Okay? By default, if you're not familiar with OAuth, you've probably all used it. So if you've ever authorized, say, a Facebook application to or a Google application or any of the major providers. This is that flow you go through that says, hey, this awesome application is trying to access your account. It wants access to X, Y, and Z. Would you like to approve or deny that? Okay? And the end user is performing the authorization function. And this is appropriate in consumer settings and even in some enterprise settings. But one of the things that Salesforce allows you to do is kind of invert the posture of how authorization works in the OAuth flow. And what we're going to say is that actually administrators, the corporation, has jurisdiction over who's allowed to access this app. Maybe it's an app for people that are managing your data center, and they walk through the data center and scan hardware as it's getting checked out. And you only want the people with that particular role to have that application. Or maybe it's just for employees, and you don't want contractors to have it. Administrators want to control this. Well, we've tried within Salesforce Identity to make this work like everything else on the Salesforce platform. So naturally, what you're going to do is use either a profile or a permission set in order to grant access to this application. You can tell this because in the connected app, it had a permitted users policy, and it said only admin allowed users are allowed to use this app. So Pat's going to create a permission set, and this is actually, why don't we add the if you want to click
add the app first?
We're going to actually authorize the app. So we've created our permission set. You'll notice assigned connected apps is the second link on this page. And if we click on this, notice nothing's been assigned. So Pat's just going to hit edit, and he's going to grab our awesome app and move it from left to right. And now this permission set contains the authorization required to use this application. Okay. And the final thing we need to do is actually authorize this. There's a lot of different ways you can assign users permission sets. For instance, Identity Connect, our single sign-on server, could do it based upon an Active Directory group. You can do it directly here from Manage Assignments. You can go to the user object itself, or you can even go to the connected app. One way or another, you need to get the administrative access to this user. So why don't we just do it from here? Click Manage Assignments and find our user. We'll click Add Assignments. And why don't we authorize, well, our admin and demo user. Yep. Assign this. Now that our users have this permission, they should be able to actually use this app. So why don't we retry? We'll go through this flow again. We will drag it off the screen because Apple refuses to give us a setting that doesn't echo passwords.
Oh, I just fat-fingered it. Hang on. It's even harder to type your password when you can't even see the little blobs.
And all the pressure. OK, you've been logged in. And look at this. We're now authorized to use the app. And that was how simple it was. If you look at what we've done, having enabled single sign-on for the web, we didn't have to do any additional work in order to make single sign-on work directly inside of a mobile application. In other words, we can directly leverage web-based single sign-on, the things people are using with their desktop browsers, inside of these mobile apps. You just use the mobile SDK, point it at the right URL, and we will take care of the rest for you. In addition, on the connected app, we put in place policy that said only these authorized users are allowed to use this application. Why don't we take a look at a couple of the other policies that are available for us real quick. So we do have some additional policies on connected apps. So if you go to, actually go to Manage Apps.
Oh, yeah.
And go to Connected Apps. First link there. And we'll drill into Awesome. This is where you manage the app. And just hit Edit, and we'll run through things really quickly here. So as you can see, we have its logo and whatnot. But the first one, permitted users, this is where we say users are pre-authorized to use this application. And then we've also got a few other options here. Enforce IP restrictions is an interesting one. This basically allows you to change the behavior of IP restrictions in a mobile context. So let's picture you have IP restrictions on your org. You probably don't want to whitelist the Verizon network or the AT&T network or the Orange network or whatever your large provider is, because that's a pretty broad IP restriction. It's kind of like shutting off IP restrictions. But you might want to say, let's relax IP restrictions as long as the user provides a second factor of authentication. Refresh token policies, why don't we take a look at those? A refresh token is what allows us to restart an app and not have to have the user go through an authentication process again.
Shall I show them that?
Sure.
Yeah,
so
OK. So let's kill the app. So app's not running. You've logged out, whatever. It's the next day. Start the app up again, and no username, password. So what happened there was, and this is another great feature that the mobile SDK is providing. As part of the OAuth flow, you get what's called a refresh token, which is a persistent token that's valid according to policy. And the mobile SDK, under the covers, stores that securely in the iOS keychain, and then when your app, every time the app starts up, it checks that keychain, and if there's a refresh token, it exchanges that for effectively a session token, and you're in without having to log in. But this is where you as an admin or your admin can control the policy around those refresh tokens.
Yep, and the policies we have here, there's a few different ones. The first one and the default is just let them keep using this. We just want our users in the app. We want it to be nice and easy for them. We also have some other options, expire immediately. If you wanted them to go through that single sign-on flow every time, put it on expire immediately, and every time they need a new session, they're going to have to go through single sign-on again. Or we've got some kind of hybrids of this. These are basically sliding windows or fixed windows. Let's say you wanted to let somebody make somebody log in again if they hadn't used the application in a week. Well, this third one, expire refresh token, if not used in a particular amount of time, will look at how long it's been since they used the app and make them log in again. So, oftentimes, though, people want to pair this type of refresh token policy with, they want the users to have this single sign-on experience, but they want a little extra protection. And what I'm disappointed by is I don't see those policies here. So one thing you'll want to pay attention to is when you're actually developing your applications down here in Create Apps, and if we go into the Awesome application, there's one other thing you can say about your app as a developer, which is if you go down here to the mobile thing, you can say pin protect. Okay? And if we have the pin protect policy and we save this and we go back to manage our application and edit it, you'll notice some additional policies available down here. So now what we can say to this application is, okay, users can use the refresh token over and over again, but I want you to collect a 4-digit PIN from them if they've been idle for 10 minutes, for example.
Right. Is that the policy we want?
That's the policy we want.
All right, excellent.
So let's save that.
Should we go and see the effect of the PIN policy?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, let's
reset content and settings and just start fresh.
Good one. Yep.
Just because I'm not feeling risky
I'm in
today.
the wrong thing here. Here we go. Yep. Reset. Now
this should dynamically take, but since I'm in a room in front of a bunch of people, we'll just start fresh and not tempt the demo gods.
Okay, so
Pat's going to log in one more time.
Yay. I wish there was a way that you could just say, okay, don't show the characters for a fraction of a second.
And now when Pat logs in, notice some different behavior. Because the policy has been in place, it's asking Pat to set a PIN code.
Never set this PIN.
It's the
demo purposes only. Yeah, we're professionals, we can do that. Okay.
Be safe.
And we're in.
Yeah.
And
what'll happen is, Pat, you want to background this app, Command-Shift-HH, and kill it. And let's fire that back up again. Notice we have to enter the PIN again, because that user needs a new session, or their app was backgrounded and it terminated, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're in. So you can use this combination of single sign-on to get in for that initial bootstrapping, then get this nice, fast single sign-on process where they don't have to type user ID and password again. But if you need to step that up, you can put these PIN policies in place. Notice you haven't had to code anything. No one's written a line of Objective-C yet. Okay, all of this is being done by the platform, and the server and the mobile SDK just signaling back and forth to each other. Here's the single sign-on server I want you to use. Here's the policy I want you to use, et cetera.
And that 10 minutes refers to the fact that if you just put your phone down and the app is idle for 10 minutes, next time you go in, even though you haven't killed it, it'll want the PIN again. All right.
Okay, so now we're gonna switch. That was kind of our first half. We built an app, we wired it up to single sign-on, we authorized particular users, and we put some enterprise policies in place. We now have an app that doesn't do much, but we'd like to distribute it to our users.
Hey, it doesn't do much, but it's awesome. It reliably tells you the names of 10 random users in your org.
Yes, pretty awesome.
Every time.
So, we are now going to figure out how to get that app to your employees. Right? We're not going to go list this on AppExchange because it's a private IT app. How are we going to do this? So Salesforce Identity has something called the Private App Exchange, and this is somewhere where you can basically list applications. We have it set up for Cloud Cuckoo Land, which is how we describe Dreamforce privately, but now publicly. And we are, as you can see, you can brand it. My daughter's in charge of branding. And we don't really have any interesting applications here listed. What we're going to do is we're actually going to build this mobile binary and show you how Private App Exchange can be used to distribute applications directly to your phone. So switching back to Xcode, we have to do a little iOS magic here. So we're going to go in and switch where this is being built for. So we're going to target
iOS
for our iOS device. And then let's go to product and archive. OK, and what we have now is we've built basically what's known as an IPA. This is a binary that is the app that runs on your phone.
OK, so we have to export that.
Yep.
And it's going to be, is it ad hoc or enterprise deployment?
Ad hoc. So you've got a couple of different options here. One is save it for the iOS store. Okay, this is if you're doing consumer distribution. The second was ad hoc deployment. That's basically what we're going to do today because it's the easiest to simulate. The third is probably where you'd end up, which is enterprise distribution. So what you can do is you can go purchase from Apple. I think it costs like $300, a certificate which will allow you to build internal apps and distribute them to all your employees. What we've done here is we're distributing in an ad hoc manner. We can distribute it to named devices, up to 100 devices.
All right.
Okay.
So there's a couple of things you want to watch out for here. When we need to synchronize some data into Salesforce. And what we're going to be using is this bundle identifier and version. It's super important that you have these exactly identical between the two. So this is, of course, where we're going to slip up, but let's have a go anyway. So let's go back into setup. We want to go back to that apps record.
Yeah, so remember the connected apps are where we describe the application to the platform. This can be SAML, this can be OAuth. It also can be mobile capabilities. So one of the things this allows you to do is host a mobile binary. So we're going to upload our iOS binary. And there's a few different settings here. The first is the app version. Once again, this app version has to exactly match what was in Xcode. And then the bundle identifier.
Which is, I'm not seeing, oh, where's the bundle identifier?
That's a good question. Where's the bundle identifier? Yeah.
Oh, OK. Glad somebody's done this before.
Check the box, Pat.
There we go. OK, so we give it the binary we just created. It's been a long Dreamforce already. So there we go. Let's go to here, and then let's go to here, and let's get that guy. OK, app icon. Where's your icon?
So if you let me find it quick, because I'll go faster. So we're going to head down and we're just going to grab the icon from our development environment. So I'm going to go down to where we built this. This was down in, as you can see, we've done a lot of Dreamforces. Awesome. And let's grab this icon. Sure, that'll work. And then our bundle identifier, is it in your? Nope.
Nope.
So we're going to switch back to Xcode. And we're going to grab our bundle identifier. And I'm going to set down my laptop. And type in.
Oh, no, you've gone to the next.
Oop. Oy, oy, oy.
This is why Chuck's product manager.
OK.
Does it look good?
That looks good to me. I say we save it.
Yeah. Don't need a mobile start URL?
Nah.
No. All right.
OK, so what's going on now is the binary is being uploaded to the platform. Now Salesforce has a copy of this binary, and we're going to use this for distribution. So the final thing we're going to do is now create a listing in Private App Exchange. Okay? So if we go over here to click App Listings, if you don't have Private App Exchange, this is something you can deploy freely from the apps from App Exchange. It's a package you can install. Notice it detected we already had our awesome app. It detected the icon for it or the logo for it. Pat's just going to set up some categories, the language, et cetera. And then we want to define access here. And we're going to go ahead and say awesome app access and save that. Okay? And we're going to fill in a little more information about the listing. Not much. Let's give it a tagline, a description. You can do all sorts of fancy stuff with Private App Exchange. You can upload screenshots, videos. You can have chatter for collaborating around the app. So let's say you want to ask the owner of the app a question. The owner of that app wants to push out information to everybody who's using the application. So some good options here. And Pat's just going to save this. This should give us a bare minimum listing for this application. Actually, you can just hit publish listing. OK, and now view listing. And we should have this live in the App Store. So notice it says install now. It's detected that our user already has access to this application. Okay. You can, of course, go through an authorization flow if your user wants to get access to this application. In this case, what we're going to do is show you what this will actually feel like to your end users. So we're going to fire up Salesforce 1. So here I am as my, maybe? Yeah. OK, so here's I am as my end user. I'm in standard Salesforce 1. I got in through that same single sign-on capability that we used in our mobile app. And one of the things we'll see is that if I go into the store within here, you'll now see that our listing is available for this user in the store. And that actually automatically detected that I'm running on iOS, and this is an application that's available to me. So if I drill into my listing here, we'll see that everything is awesome and that we should have a nice, cool listing for our app. We could have done some more stuff here, put some screenshots, looked at various categories and browse stuff. Like I said, you could collaborate around the application, so we could look at chatter that's available. Or we're just going to hit the big shiny green button, which is install now. Now, if I were in a mode where I didn't have the permission set for this app, Private App Exchange would detect that, and it would say request access. And then you go through an approval workflow on the phone in order to get access.
That's what it'll do, because it's awesome app access.
But in this case, we're just going to hit install, and with any luck.
Come on.
With any luck? OK, this is the part where we have to tap dance.
OK, maybe let's describe what should be happening.
What should be happening is I should be getting prompted for this. Why don't we go in through this end? OK, Pat, talk for a sec. I will try and recover demo quickly.
OK. So, so as you saw, we set, when we were configuring that app and listing it in the Private App Exchange, it had a permission set. And so what you can do is, you could pre-assign that permission set to some set of users, or you could just leave it as is. And then when users encounter that listing in your Private App Exchange and they say, install now, what's going to happen is it's basically going to send the admin a message and say, user Danny Smith wants to install the awesome app. Is that OK? And that can come up on your chatter. And then you can, as the admin, you can say, yep, allow Danny to use the awesome app, and it will appear on his phone.
If we're lucky.
By now, you got some eye candy?
I'm hoping. We're going to give it one more try.
OK. We're losing people. Come on.
I'm trying. We're going to try install now, and we're going to cross our fingers and hope that the network gods participate. But it appears we're going to have a presentation without a punchline, Pat.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Right.
OK, well, I apologize. We have some technical glitch. We messed something up along the way. It worked quite well in rehearsals, though. Yeah. How about we switch to questions?
All right.
So thanks for everybody's time. We're sorry it didn't quite work out. Like Pat said, you hit the Install Now button. The user experience will be a little pop-up that says, would you like to install Awesome App? You click yes, and that binary is just going to come down and deploy directly on the phone, just like any other binary that you might be downloading from iTunes. So it's a very iTunes-like experience, except you get to customize and personalize this yourself. So that was the Private App Exchange version of this. One thing to note is we are in November releasing what's known as the Store Builder, which will give you a version of Private App Exchange or a version of App Exchange that is for external users for your company. So if you want to build and distribute applications for external users, you'll also be able to use this, not just for employees. And with that, let's switch to questions. And thanks for everybody's time. Sorry, it almost all worked. So live demos can get crazy, though.
All right. And if you'd like to use the mic so that everybody could hear your question, that would be great.
I have a question. It might be pretty simple. Actually, two of them. Maybe yes, no answers. I don't know. Integrate with Salesforce One?
Yes.
Okay. Compile for a mobile device like BYOD container?
For a BYOD container?
Well, like Mobile Iron?
You'd have to, as part of your development process, you'd have to take the good or mobile iron or whatnot binaries and do their wrapping process.
Right,
but we don't really care what the binary
But you
is
can
that we're
compile.
hosting.
There's nothing that prevents that.
No,
Nothing
it's
that prevents it.
You're just basically building a standard mobile app, and then it can be wrapped however you like. And I have something for the first question answerer. So if you come up, I can give you a free burrito.
Cool.
All right. I'm running out of burrito cards now, but there you go. Here you go.
You can trade it for a burrito card.
Thank you.
All right. So any more questions? Yes.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing from a man-in-the-middle attack with your OAuth 2 scenario in the Salesforce One Mobile?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about that. At the moment, the container basically will trust SSL and what's been established on the server. We are introducing a new feature in the spring release, which will basically allow you to pop to external browsers to use different types of authentication mechanisms. And in that, we are doing some basically binding of the authorization tokens to a particular device, or the single sign-on callbacks to a particular device in that case. We are examining as an organization certificate pinning, but it is not yet into the mobile SDK. So, and feel free to hit me afterwards. That's about as deep as I could go in this setting. So, okay. Yep. More questions?
I think we're done.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for your time. Feel free to come up and ask us.
Thank you.